All right, off-season football is here. We are officially in the off-season. AAF Saturday night. Oh, we have a poll question up. I forgot about the poll question. I'm going to bring this up. John McMullen at JF McMullen. Here to talk some football with us. I enjoy the thought of this offseason for Philadelphia and some interesting storylines. We're going to get into 10 bold predictions for this 2019 season. But the poll question we asked you at 973 ESPN, John, you ready for this? There is football this weekend. Will you watch AAF games this weekend? Yes, I'll check it out. No interest. 55% no interest. 45% yes, I'll check it out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised by that.
By the way, what happened to Michael Vick? Did he get fired?
Who knows? Obviously, there's some issues. I mean, there was one of the players, I don't know if you saw, from Birmingham, got arrested in a prostitution sting. So things are not going all that well for the kickoff of the AAF. It's interesting, though. I mean, I do think there are fans who, and you get them all the time, who are, sports talk radio and sports as a whole is so NFL-centric now because that's the most popular sport, and there's not necessarily much interest generated by other sports unless the teams are doing really, really well. And I do think they get a little bit tired of it after the Super Bowl, but it only lasts for a couple weeks, and then they want more information about the draft and everything of that nature. So I'm not surprised that it's underwater 50%, that fans don't want to dive right back into a different product. But if you like football, I think it's a positive.
I'm in. Saturday night, I'm in. Not only am I in, I'm using resortscasino.com to bet on it.
There we go. I'm wondering if there's going to be any fantasy football AAF
I thought the same thing.
I hope not.
I thought the same thing. Is there going to be fantasy AAF drafts?
That would be amazing to me. I'm not surprised. People will bet on everything, and there's understandable why.
How do you make a line on these games?
Yeah, I mean, you get all the emails about the over-unders, about who's going to win what. I have no idea how they pick these things. I mean, these are completely new teams, completely new organizations. I think most of it has to do with looking at the quarterbacks and thinking, okay, this quarterback is better than this quarterback, and they probably generate the win totals from that.
That's exactly what I figured. Coach and quarterback will just go out there. That they get people excited. We'll throw lines out about that. But I saw, some of the betting lines are over under 28,000 fans in attendance at one of the places. Another one was 26,000, I think, in San Diego. You can bet over unders on the attendance.
Yeah, as I said, I mean, if there's a way for somebody to make some money, that part I understand. So people are going to bet on certain things. And
so here's a question. Is betting enough to get them a decent enough rating to make it?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I said that with the NFL. I mean, obviously, a lot of people bet on the NFL, and I still think if you look at it as a whole and look at, say, the Super Bowl rating, which is disappointing this year, and I put that in quotes, when you compare it to everything else, it destroys it. But the vast majority of that 100 million people that are watching the Super Bowl don't bet on the game. The vast majority are casual fans who are just interested in it as an entertainment vehicle. So I don't think bettors can drive interest that way because there's just not enough of them. I think you need casual fans, and that's where minor league sports across all spectrums have a lot of difficulty because it's tough to get casual fans into something like that.
Vote now at 973 ESPN. There is football this weekend. Will you watch the Alliance of American Football games this weekend, Saturday night in prime time? And by the way, John, they're putting real broadcast teams out there and real pregame shows. They're trying at least to make it – they're dressing it up.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it before a lot. I mean, the first XFL was pretty high profile as far as announcers as well.
Well, that was different. They had Jim Ross and Jesse the Body Ventura doing games.
Well, no, they had Matt Fiskirchen actually, and then they tried to sort of shift when the ratings sort of sunk second week moving forward because the product was bad. Then they brought in the JR stuff and tried to put the entertainment tin on it. But they had some big-time announcers and guys who've gone on and have tremendous success.
Right.
But going all the way back to the USFL and things of that. This is hardly the first time people have tried, but I think from an NFL perspective, I think maybe there's a chance they embrace this because I think there's a benefit to a developmental league, and they're already putting some of the telecasts on the NFL Network.
Right.
And especially for quarterbacks. I mean, if there's one position this league needs, it's obviously quarterback. And if there's one position where you need to play to improve, it's quarterback. There's nothing you can do. You can study and you can go and practice as a third-string guy, and you're just not going to develop. Whereas you look at the old World League and guys like Kurt Warner and Brad Johnson and Jake Delhomme, they all came from that league because they got to play and they got experience. And in two cases, with Kurt and Brad, you had Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. Jake made a Super Bowl. Kurt's in the Hall of Fame. I think it's valuable.
Kurt Warner, by the way, as he mentioned, he's going to be a part of one of the broadcast team. I think Tiki Barber was another one. They've got Alex Flanagan. She's doing the pregame. Trent Green, Adam Archuleta. So there's actual people who have had some broadcasting experience and high-profile names. That is the AAF. We have a little fun with it. I'll be interested to see if what the games look like and everything. Let's get into ESPN.com did their 10 bold predictions for next season. I want to see how bold you think some of these are and how realistic some of these are. So we'll start with number one. We touched on it yesterday, but number one, the Jaguars will acquire Nick Foles somehow, but still miss the playoffs.
Yeah, I think it's logical to think Jacksonville obviously needs a quarterback. John DeFilippo's now there as the offensive coordinator, so it's easy to put that two and two together and say they would want Nick Foles. And then the second part is not making the playoffs. It's a very talented team. They still have a lot of talent on the defensive side of the football. But I'm on record and been pretty consistent. Nick Foles is a system quarterback, so you got to have the system set up. And I'm not sure Jacksonville would have that. They do have John there, as we said. If Leonard Fournette's still there, maybe you have a running game. I think the one place Nick could succeed would be the New York Giants because Saquon Barkley and Odell Beckham. You can build a system around that.
No question. Number two, the Texans will sign Le'Veon Bell to a deal that eclipses Todd Gurley.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that. Le'Veon's going to be the highest paid running back in the history of football. I don't think there's any question about that. Somebody's going to dip their toe into that, and the Texans would be a logical candidate. But there'll be more. That's a really good player. And more than anything, it's a really impactful player on all three downs. He's a great receiver. He's in that mold of Kamara and Gurley as far as catching the football, and he's also the bell cow guy who can carry it 25 times if you need it. And I don't think there's another running back, including Gurley, that's as nearly as good as he is. He's clicking on all cylinders.
Yeah, I'm interested in that deal. I want to see what that kind of contract is. It feels like the running back's kind of coming back, but is it coming back monetarily?
Well, it depends what you compare it to. No, I don't think it's coming back to the point where it's going to be – obviously it's not going to be in the realm of quarterback, but even then you talk about the values of position, edge rusher, corner. I don't think it's going back to that range.
Number 3 is interesting. Antonio Brown will lead the league in receptions with the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, that's a good prediction because that's where he wants to play.
What's the catch there? What's the connection?
I don't know. Maybe he just likes the Bay Area. But he's been pretty, giving out hints that – and they need a wide receiver, so he could be looking at the landscape. I don't think it's anything more than that. As far as, if he plays 16 games, he's going to be – if he's not going to be the top receiver, he's certainly going to be in the top 5. The issue comes from Pittsburgh's standpoint. He keeps doing stupid things, and seemingly every single day you see something about his value going down. And the fact that now people are talking about a middle-round pick for Antonio Brown. You got to get more than that, even with that salary. But he's doing so many stupid things, it's going to be difficult.
John McMullen, these are ESPN.com's 10 bold NFL predictions for the next 2019 season. How about this one? I love this guy, but Russell Wilson becomes the highest paid player in the NFL. Seattle's kind of got the back to the wall here with him.
Yeah, that's a timing thing, and that's the next quarterback who's getting the next extension. That's a superstar. Could be Carson Wentz when the Eagles pull the trigger.
You think Wentz will eventually be at some point the highest paid player in the league, based on timing?
Yeah, when he signs a deal. Exactly. What you see the increments? It went from guys like Derek Carr to Matthew Stafford to Aaron Rodgers and Matt Ryan held it for a while. Kirk Cousins held it for a while. It's just the next guy. So, if you're about to sign a superstar quarterback or somebody who's perceived as a superstar quarterback, and really, Seattle, their second contract with Russell Wilson is probably the perfect example of that, where they got a really good deal, and he wasn't the highest paid quarterback. So you just look at those deals and say, from a team standpoint, how team-friendly can you get the quarterback? Tom Brady would be another perfect example because he's been willing to take less to maybe help build the back end of the roster. But generally, that's what quarterbacks is. The next guy up is going to be the highest paid until the next guy.
Number 5, the NFL establishes some sort of video review system that pertains to penalties.
Yeah, well, we just talked about the AAF, and I think, that's going to be one of the interesting things to look at that league because they're going to have, I think they call it a sky judge, so they're going to have somebody in the booth who can overturn plays or call plays, even call penalties that they may have missed. So I think the NFL will have a keen eye on that. Clearly, because of what happened to the Saints, it's still in the forefront of everyone's mind. So they're going to have a lot of things on the table. But I think if they can see something work in the AAF, maybe they can take from that. And I've advocated in the past, at least, I think the college rule, the way the college game handles officiating calls and replay and the fact that you can buzz down, I think that's a better way.
So what is the AAF doing here?
They're going to have a sky judge. They're going to have an extra official in the booth who can look at video and correct or even call penalties. So similar to the college rule, but I think a little bit further, they'll be able to buzz down and correct things. So we'll see how it works.
Interesting. Number 6, the Cleveland Browns will win the AFC North.
Well, it wouldn't shock me. I think you have to see what goes on with Pittsburgh because obviously that's still the best team, but they're probably going to lose Le'Veon Bell. They're probably going to trade Antonio Brown, and all of a sudden You're not nearly as explosive as you once were. Still a very good team, though. I mean, James Conner was a tremendous back in his own right. They were still able to move the football consistently without Le'Veon Bell. So I would still say Pittsburgh's a better team. But Cleveland's coming, man. And, you know, when you get all those draft choices and you're that bad for that long, it happened to the Detroit Lions. The key is, can you make correct decisions moving forward and keep getting better and better and better? And that's where you have your questions with the Browns, because there's been no evidence that organization can make good decisions on a consistent basis. Now, John Dorsey's in there now, at least from a football standpoint. You would think they've started to move in the right direction.
All right, let's check out a couple of more. Number 7, the Browns. The other new playoff teams will be the Vikings, Titans, and 49ers. We know that there's a lot of new playoff teams, but Vikings, Titans, 49ers, they'll be the hot teams next year.
Well, everybody in this league is in love with Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't know necessarily why, so that doesn't surprise me. I mean, we just talked about Antonio Brown wanting San Francisco. That's another part of that equation. People think he's going to be a star because of that little 4 or 5 game run, whatever it was. I still need to see more. I don't like Marcus Mariota a little bit. I've been pretty consistent on this show as a quarterback, so I'm not thrilled with Tennessee. I don't think they're going to be consistently good, because it's hard to be consistently good if the quarterback isn't consistent. I think they have a playoff level roster, but they're going to be one of those teams that maybe wins 10 games one year, makes the playoffs, and then takes a step back. And Minnesota, I think, made Rick Dennison their new offensive line coach today. They made it official. I think, and I put this on Twitter, that's one of the most important off-season hirings anywhere because of how bad their offensive line was. If they can fix their offensive line, they're a Super Bowl contender.
All right, number 8, 4 QBs drafted in the first round.
You know, I haven't really delved into the draft all that much yet, but I say this every year, and it's pretty consistent. Usually quarterbacks get pushed up the board, so it doesn't matter how they pick at them early in the process. There's generally so many desperate teams looking for quarterbacks. It's generally going to be one more than you probably think. So if there's 3 consensus number 1 picks, yeah, I mean 4 is probably a good indication, because you saw it last year. Perfect example of the Eagles having the 32nd pick. You get that extra year, that 5th-year option with first-round picks. And I talked about it a lot before last year's draft. Somebody's going to want to trade in that position to get a quarterback, and that's exactly what happened.
They have Haskins, Murray, Locke, and Daniel Jones as the 4 guys listed. All right, number 9, there will be no formal talks about an extension to the CBA. This is not good.
No, you know, the NFLPA had their meeting at the Super Bowl, and I was there, and Eric Winston was there, and D. Smith was there, and they confirmed there hasn't been any talk. How they described it is they talked about talking, and that's where we'll be. We still have 2 more seasons to go. So I would agree with that. It probably won't start till after, at least in a real sort of pulling up your sleeves type fashion, till after next season. And that's not that big of a concern at this point, because you're not going to get anything done.
Any concern for you for a lockout again?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a possibility of a lockout in the off season like there was last time. I'm not sure how that will affect people. I think it affected the league greatly. If you think about the lockout before 2011, the teams that handled that the best from a coaching staff standpoint, because they didn't have OTAs in many camps, and they changed the way you can practice. So the guys who handled that the best were off and running, and they were the best teams that year. And the organizations that didn't handle it were really up against it. So it's probably not something the general fan is going to notice, but that could be a big thing. And, yeah, a lockout wouldn't surprise me. A strike would surprise me, though. A strike would surprise me. You're going to hear a lot of talk, Mike, about marijuana, about Colin Kaepernick, about all these white noise ancillary issues that don't matter. The only thing that matters in CBAs is money. And if the players get the split of money that they want, sort of a split that basketball gets or baseball gets, you can test them for weed. Nobody's going to care about Colin Kaepernick. All that white noise, none of it matters. What matters is the split in revenue.
All right, there we go. NFL offseason continuing on. We'll have plenty of coverage of it. The free agency will be beginning here shortly. We'll keep an eye on it all. John McMullen at JF McMullen on Twitter. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the AAF.
You too, Mike.